Hello listeners, welcome to Mahatma Gandhi Letters. This is an approach to understand Mahatma Gandhi's life through the letters and articles he has written. In previous episodes, we have seen how Gandhi convinced South African Indians the severity of the new law being brought by the government there. In this regard, Gandhi wrote an article in the journal, the Natal Advertiser, and the article is called The Indian Vote. This article was Gandhi's reply to an article published earlier in that journal claiming that Indians were not eligible to vote. Throughout this article, Gandhi asserts that the very small number of Indians who come to South Africa are only poor immigrants, and it would pose no political challenge to the Europeans by giving them the right to vote. Here the article goes. Pretoria, September 29, 1893. To the editor. The Natal Advertiser. Sir, I have to request your indulgence for inserting the following in your paper. To make an exhaustive reply to the program set forth by you for the would-be anti-Asiatic League in your issue of the 19th inst. is a Herculean task, and it cannot be undertaken in the compass of a letter to a newspaper. I would, however, with your permission, take up only two items, the fears about the coolie vote swamping the European vote, and the supposed unfitness of the Indians to vote. At the outset, I would appeal to your good sense and the love of fair play which is supposed to be a characteristic of the British nation. No amount of facts or arguments would convince you or your readers of the justness of my remarks, if you or they are resolved upon looking at one side only of the question. Cool judgment and a dispassionate and impartial inquiry are essential to a right view of the whole matter. Does it not appear a far-fetched view that the Indian vote can ever swamp the European vote? A mere superficial observer can see that such a thing can never happen. A sufficient number of Indians can never command the property qualifications to be able to outdo the European vote. They are divided into two classes, the traders and the laborers. The latter are by far in the majority and have no votes as a rule. Poverty-stricken, they come to Natal on starvation wages. Can they ever dream of having enough property to qualify themselves for voting? And these are they who live here with any degree of permanence. Some only of the former class have the property qualifications, but then they do not live permanently in Natal, and many of those who can legally vote would never care to do so. The Indians as a class never, even in their own country, avail themselves of all their political rights. They are too much taken up with their spiritual well-being to think of taking an active part in politics. They have no very great political aspirations. They come not to be politicians, but to earn an honest bread, and it is a matter for regret if some do not earn it strictly honestly. So then, it seems that all the fears about the Indian vote, assuming portentous proportions, are ill-grounded, and even the few votes that the Indians command cannot in any way affect the natal politics. All talk about an Indian party clamoring for Indian representation seems to be chimerical, for the selection would always be between two white men. Would it then matter much that there are some Indian votes? The most the few votes can do will be to secure them a perfectly white gentleman, who would, if he is faithful to his promise, do them good service in the assembly. And fancy one or two such members making up an Indian party. Why, they, or rather he, would be a veritable John crying in the wilderness without his electric and perhaps, I should say, divine power of converting. Even strong little parties, representing diverse minor interests, can affect very little in the imperial parliament. They can only heckle the First Lord with a few questions and have the satisfaction of seeing their names appear in the next morning's papers. Then, you think that the Indians are not civilized enough to be fit for voting, that they may not be any better than the natives, and that they are certainly not equal to the Europeans in the scale of civilization? Perhaps not, and all would depend upon the meaning of the word civilization. It is impossible to enter into a full discussion of all the questions suggested by an inquiry into the matter. I may, however, be allowed to point out that they enjoy these privileges in India. The Queen's Proclamation of 1858, which is justly and rightly called the Magna Charta of the Indians, runs, "We hold ourselves bound to the natives of our Indian territories by the same obligations of duty which bind us to all our other subjects, and these obligations, by the blessing of Almighty God, we shall faithfully and conscientiously fulfill. It is our further will that, so far as may be, our subjects, of whatever race or creed, be freely and impartially admitted to offices in our service, the duties of which they may be qualified by their education, ability, and integrity, duly to discharge. I can produce other similar extracts relating to the Indians, but I am afraid I have already trespassed too much upon your courtesy. I may add, however, that an Indian has been the acting Chief Justice of the High Court of Calcutta. An Indian is a judge of the High Court at Allahabad, whose co-religionists the Indian traders as a rule are, and an Indian is a member of the British Parliament. Moreover, the British government in many respects follow in the footsteps of Akbar the Great, who ruled and lived in the 16th century. He was an Indian. The present land system is a copy of the policy of Todormol, the great financier and an Indian, with but few modifications. If all this is the outcome, not of civilization but of semi-barbarity, I have yet to learn what civilization means. If, in the face of all the above facts, you can foment dissensions and set the European section of the community to work against the Indian section, you are great. I, M.K. Gandhi, The Natal Advertiser, 3rd October, 1893. So friends, this was the article titled The Indian Vote, written by Gandhi for the Natal Advertiser journal to advocate voting rights for Indians in South Africa. In the next episodes, we will see how Gandhi led the revolution and spread it to other provinces. Thank you for listening to Mahatma Gandhi Letters, an approach to understand Mahatma Gandhi's life through the letters and article he has written.